A great feeling from Jimmy Lakey. Jimmy Lakey in the morning makes me feel alive. Woke me up this morning, now I'm up and on my way. Oh, 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 yeah, what a great way to start your day, the Lakey way.
Well, we never had that happen before. Good morning, everybody. How are you? Never, ever, ever have I ever, fill in the blank, had that happen before. What just happened? You didn't see it. Producer Chad and I saw it. It was weird. I'm sitting here, and I've told you I have buttons I'm supposed to push. It's on my checklist every morning for Lakey Unleashed. Producer Chad, he pushes the buttons that are like this long as it goes on and on, a whole checklist. I have like 3 buttons to push, and at the assigned and appointed moment, I had to hit a button, and I hit a button, but evidently I missed the button, my little click on the screen, and anyway, we started this show, and producer Chad jumps on and says, "Hey, we're not live." And my button is to, when I'm ready to go live, I hit go live. And the music starts and it comes on your screens. It's usually about 2-3 minutes you wait before the show starts. So I hit live and I was, oh, well, shoot, we're even late. So, and then I didn't hit live. So anyway, I started the show already. So catch up with me. All right. I started the show earlier, and evidently with my mouse and click and finger, I had bad aim on the button that I was supposed to push because, you know, I've got to be ready to go live. So when I hit go live, it triggers all the hamsters. They start spinning, and boom, the cameras come on and everything. So anyway, good to have you here. And I hope you, if you missed the earlier opening of the show, called Producer Chad, it was really fantastic. I mean, I was on fire in that earlier opening of the show. Unfortunately, only Producer Chad saw it. And then he's sitting there going, what a nitwit. He's not even live, and he's carrying on like something's going on. So anyway, good morning to you. And sorry you missed the opening. We're going to skip that for the day, and we'll talk about something else. Indeed, we shall. All right, coming up on the program, lots of things to get to, but the big breaking news story of the day is the Trump ceasefire, is what they're calling it. The Trump ceasefire between Hamas and the Israelis. Phase 1 is now being prepared for. Evidently, sometime in the dead of night while we were asleep or early morning in Israel, they signed the they signed the peace deal. And phase 1 of the peace deal is that Israel will pull back to a certain line, a yellow line, and they will wait 72 hours for all the hostages, dead and alive, Israelis and Americans, to be released and freed from their captivity. I was listening to one of the stories. Interesting part of the timeline is they're not withdrawing out of Gaza. They are just withdrawing to where they'll go to a yellow line, which basically means Israelis will occupy and control still 51%. Right now, they're at 80-something% of the land and territory that they have under their watchful military eye, and they're going to pull back to about 51%. One of the reasons for this is I've heard, and again, I wasn't in the negotiation. I heard that the Hamas group said, well, we can't release all the remains because some of them we got to find them, and some of the remains are in areas that Israel has occupied, we think, so we got to go hunt them down. So the disturbing story there. But Israel's going to pull back, and supposedly that's going to give Hamas the ability to find even the remains of those that died at the hands of their murderous captors, as known as Hamas. So that would take us about 72 hours to get all the hostages out of there. That'll take us about Sunday or Monday, and then the next phase, and the next phase, and the next phase. And if it all goes, we have peace on earth and goodwill towards men, at least in that area, for a period of time. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. All the commentators that I can see are here basically said Hamas had really no choice. They faced obliteration, or just hopefully they don't get obliterated. So we will see what happens. Hamas is now going to be forbidden to have political power in that area. But it is interesting to see some of the Arab nations come together and support this peace deal, and how Donald Trump, by really just a sheer force of nature and force of will, is able to command respect and say, we're going to solve the dang problem. Let's figure out how. And he figured this one out. If we get this one all figured out, the hostages are released. If Hamas tries anything new, I'm guessing President Trump will give the thumbs up for obliteration, and we shall see what happens. Very tragic what's happened there the last now 2 years, since October the 7th, a couple of years ago, but glad to see that it is ending. A lot of people suffered because of some really nasty people. A lot of people suffered. Yeah, women, children, civilians all suffered on both sides. And that's what happens when evil prevails, and when evil is out there. Bad people suffer when they shouldn't suffer, and that's kind of the fruit of evil. So we'll keep a sharp eye on it. Right now, there's an Israeli cabinet meeting reviewing the Gaza peace deal. I saw people dancing in the street in Israel, in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem. They were waving American flags, some of them dressed up like Donald John Trump, and they were dancing traditional Jewish dances in a circle, spinning around. So a big day of celebration for those of you that value life and peace. And let's hope and pray that this gets worked out. Another little observation I will give you is go back and look at who the President Trump is using in these peace deals and all of this peace. He's got his peace envoy. He's got a son-in-law, Jared Kushner, as well. They're going around. They're business guys. These are not guys that have big business and long terms in the State Department or foreign policy. And they have negotiated the ends to the wars that other people couldn't. I mean, we had Anthony Blinken, a State Department scholar. You had John Kerry traipsing around his butt around the Middle East and the globe for years trying to find peace. Did John Kerry ever accomplish any kind of peace? John Kerry did sell us down the river with the Iranian nuclear deal. But other than that, these career diplomats suck. And this is why, again, I think the deep state hates Donald John Trump, is because he's showing that it doesn't take these stuffy, we're better than you, just let the experts handle it. That's the mentality that's gone on in Washington, D.C. And Donald Trump says, listen, some of us are like the rest of us. Human nature is human nature. And yeah, there's people with power and people with less power and more power, less power and less money, more money. But there's still motivating factors that can motivate people to get things done. And Donald Trump has figured out how to do that. Somebody says, well, I like Donald Trump's policies, but his swagger, his personality. Listen, you would not be getting Donald Trump's his policies without that swagger. The reason he's able to do that is because he has a swagger that makes some people uncomfortable. But as you see the results, you go, okay, I can tolerate that because we're getting results. So continue to pray for peace in the Middle East, and we shall see what happens. Going down near the bottom of my show sheet, I wanted, speaking of prayer for people, yesterday we talked about Dolly Parton's sister had put out a plea and said she felt led of the Lord to tell the nation to pray for Dolly. Well, evidently everybody thought Dolly was just about dead. And so people prayed for Dolly. I think that set up shrines. I don't know. And so Dolly made a video appearance while she was filming a commercial for the Grand Ole Opry. And in typical Dolly style, she says, hey, I'm okay. I'm doing a little medical treatment here near Nashville, so I'm staying near home. But listen, I ain't near dead, and I'm not as sick as you think I am. Do I look that bad? So anyway, keep praying for Dolly. Nothing wrong with praying for Dolly. But Dolly's not dead. And her sister, can you imagine the phone call? I don't know what her sister's name is. She calls her sister, says, what the heck did you do? Well, I just said I felt that we should pray for you. Well, maybe you'd ought to explain a little bit more, because everybody has a death watch. I mean, it's an amazing story that her sister caused a nationwide and global frenzy that Dolly Parton might be on her deathbed, but Dolly Parton was not on the deathbed. All right, got that story done there as well. Another story, I've told you I'm going to clean up some messes that I've made this week. I've got a question of the day I want to get to here in just a second. But I didn't do this, and somebody has asked me about it. Didn't you say that Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys, got a fine? Well, yes, he did. Let me tell you about it. I mentioned this on Monday or Tuesday, and it didn't follow through. I want to follow through. It's been in my stack and on the sheet for 2 or 3 days now. Dallas Cowboy owner Jerry Jones was fined $250,000, also known as for him is pocket change, for giving the New York Jets fans the finger at the MetLife Stadium on Sunday. It wasn't shown on TV, but a fan caught it on video. Jerry Jones is standing in his luxury box when he flips the bird up there in the air and then quickly changes it to his index finger. If you can believe it, Jerry says, it's an accident. I didn't mean to. He said he was celebrating with a touchdown, and he meant to give the thumbs up to a Dallas fans and then point at them, but somehow he flashed the wrong finger. Okay, if you're driving, don't do this. Let's say this, that you meant to give the thumbs up, and you meant to point to someone, and somehow it ended up like this. Anybody buying that story? I mean, if you're the jury of Jerry Jones' peers, I know a lot of your Dallas haters, you've got to set your bias aside to be fair. If you're going to give a thumbs up and point to someone like a little shotgun, that's probably, I don't get him suspended from the public schools anymore. You do that. How does it end up being the middle finger? I don't know. Jerry Jones has been fined, if you can believe Jerry's story. God bless you. He says there wasn't any antagonistic issue and anything like that. I just put up the wrong finger to show when I showed my hand. It was inadvertently done. I'm not kidding. If you want to call it accidental, you can call it accidental. The Cowboys did win the game 37-22. But Jerry Jones gets fined $250,000 for giving the bird. I wonder if that excuse would work at school, but I didn't flip off the teacher. I was giving the thumbs up, and then I was going to point my finger, and somehow it ended up as my middle finger. That's the explanation that old Jerry is giving for the owner of my Dallas Cowboys. So anyway, this is the crap I put up with all the time. All right, I've given the story. Dolly Parton's sister made everybody nervous. Dolly Parton's fine, has a little cold or sniffles, but she's going to be okay. All right, coming up on the show, Jeff Dornick is going to be with us, pickaxe.com. We'll talk about Jeff here in just a bit. Niels Gravilius, our old private investigator friend from Los Angeles, going to be on the show. And Jay Ratliff was on vacation last week. And so Jay Ratliff has decided to be back on the show today. He's back from vacation. Anybody remember the name of Greta Thunberg, right? Please, I don't mean to ruin your breakfast, but if you don't, there she is. Greta was in another flotilla, and Greta flotillaed her way all the way to the Middle East, where they were picked up by the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, and brought into captivity. She said she was tortured, and she says she was there because she wanted to stand up for the terror that the Israelis have brought against Hamas over the last many years, the terrorism. And so one of the pictures that she put out was this one. She put out a photo, said, look at these poor people in Gaza. Israel is destroying them. They're injuring them. This is horrible. These poor Palestinians, awful. And so Greta's out there tweeting these photos out, several of them, but this one in particular, tweeting these photos out. The problem for Greta is she's an idiot, and not just an idiot, she has a bad haircut and an idiot. That's like a double whammy. The problem with Greta is the photos that she was sharing were not Palestinians. These were prisoners. These are prisoners that are in the captivity in Gaza by Hamas. In other words, these are Israelis, the people that she was accusing of being Palestinians. And look how injured and famished and skinny and horrible conditions. Israel's bad. No. Those are Israelis, and those are the people under Hamas's watch. So if anybody has any kind of respect or fandom for Greta Thunberg, God bless you. You probably should have a lobotomy or have your heart checked or your head checked, because isn't it interesting, though, that she can just pick up a grievance at will? What's her next grievance? Now that there's going to be peace in the Middle East, besides anti-Semitism and anti-Israel, what's Greta's next grievance? Remember, she said, how dare you burn up my planet? And the planet still exists, right? So she was aggrieved about the atmosphere and the climate change and the global warming. And now she's aggrieved about Israel and Palestine. And now we have a peace deal breaking out. And so would we like to put some bets or odds in Vegas as to exactly what it is that Greta's going to be aggrieved by next? I mean, what's going to offend her sensibilities next and cause her publicity stunts to happen? So Greta Thunberg is under attack. Lots of stories to get to this morning. Again, breaking news. We still have day 9 of the government shutdown going on. Anybody felt the effect of that? There's been some rumors and speculation on in the chattering class, which I'm kind of a part of, that not only have you had air traffic controllers calling in sick and saying, I'm sorry, I can't come in today because of the government shutdown of the pay structure. There's word that there's some kind of effort among TSA agents to maybe have some kind of a sick out as well. We'll see if that happens. Not sure if that will happen, but there's rumor on the street that that could be happening as well. The question becomes, how many of you have been affected by it, whether directly not getting a paycheck, or have you had a flight canceled? And they're trying to make a big deal about those flight cancellations, but that kind of died down real quick. So we'll talk more about that here in just a second. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I mentioned my great guest for the day. One of those we added here at the last minute was Mr. Jeff Dornick. We talked about the app Pickaxe. If you don't have the old pickaxe, you should get the old pickaxe. I keep promising, I've just been so busy with other things, that we're going to get the show streaming on Pickaxe real soon. I do have an account there. You can just look me up, Jimmy Lakey, and we'll start doing and making beautiful music there together. We will, but the pickaxe, we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Please welcome the founder, the boss man, the guy behind it, is Jeff Dornick. How are you, Jeff? Good morning. Welcome back in.
Good morning. How you doing? Been looking forward to chat with you again.
I'm happy to have you on, sir. Happy to have you on a platform like Pickaxe. I'm guessing when people start chattering, they start chattering about the news of the day. And is Israel, Palestine, Gaza, is that a big topic? I guess we'd call it trending on the Pickaxe this morning.
Yeah, I would say, again, typically, the news feed will be filled with, breaking news and headlines, as well as, we've got a lot of gamers on the platform and a lot of people in the entertainment industry and things like that. But I think the nice thing about, and I think it's just the way that the structure is within Pickaxe, it's not as hateful and everybody just dropping like firebombs and just trying to explode with engagement farming, but there's actually some nuanced conversations because people are writing articles, and we've got some lefties like Ted Rall that are on there that gives a different perspective on things like Israel and Palestine, and then you've got some hardcore conservatives and Trump supporters, but there's very little of the personal attacks, and there's a lot more of like the nuance of, oh, I hear your point, but here's a counterpoint, and then there's some pretty positive discussions over a lot of these hot button issues.
If folks want to get the Pickaxe, look for me. I'm on there, and again, have not yet ramped up yet. I've been traveling a lot, but that's on my list to get ramped up, dialed in. Any kind of platform, you kind of learn the nuances. Not that it's complicated, but it just takes time to kind of start building in a community there. So we'll get on that. And again, as soon, we need to just set a goal, producer chat, of when we can have the show live up there, and then we'll just be good with that. All right, Jeff, let's get in some other news of the day. You and I have talked a lot about AI and the tech world and the world of technology and where it's headed. And we have talked about AI, and you and I have talked about how it's important to try to get out of the matrix when you can, as much as possible. Now we got old Bernie Sanders, who sometimes when Bernie speaks, conservatives go, I can't listen to Bernie because he screams about oligarchs. But he says, hey, he's put out a report that says AI is created by multi-billionaires, and it's going to make the multi-billionaires even richer, and it's going to knock 100 million people out of jobs. Is Bernie Sanders somebody that maybe everybody should be listening to right now, even conservatives, so sometimes make fun of him?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Bernie Sanders traditionally, in general, has actually been pretty spot on in pointing out a lot of the problems that we're facing as a country. Not all the time. Again, sometimes he proves he's a sellout, like in a lot of his attacks on like RFK Jr. and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the same concerns about different things, even going back all the way back to like 2016 and 2020, Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump were very aligned. And look, there's problems with the billionaires, using the system to their own benefit, and corruption and all that kind of stuff. And this is another example of Bernie Sanders is spot on when it comes to his assessment of artificial intelligence. I would say that he doesn't necessarily go far enough, but he's going further than any other politician, and basically saying that, look, AI is a problem. It's centralizing power to a handful of billionaire elite, which is true. And on top of that, it's going to knock out, he says, up to 100 million jobs over the next decade. If you listen to guys like Sam Altman and Bill Gates and Elon Musk, they're talking about AI and like for example, like Elon Musk Optimus robots or cyborgs, that they're going to replace all of humanity in the workforce. There will be no need for human beings to be in the workforce at all. So, while Bernie Sanders is spot on, I would say he's not going far enough when it comes to the catastrophe that's going to come from AI over the next decade. But then you compare what Bernie Sanders is saying compared to what the Trump administration and conservatives are talking about. And the Republican Party is fast tracking AI. The Republican Party is deregulating and helping it to go faster and quicker. And I'm like, I think we need to slow down a little bit and figure out how is this going to affect the American people? You're beholden to the American people. What's best for us? And I think that, when we look at it, AI is going to be a catastrophic unless we actually do something about it.
If you're listening on the podcast later in the day where thousands of ear holes will hear this show, earballs will hear it. And when you hear it, that's Jeff Dornick. Again, Pickaxe. We'll talk about how you can subscribe and become a member of the Pickaxe platform, a new social media platform. We'll talk with get that information in just a moment. Jeff, so many times we get caught up by the bells and whistles out there. We get, Israel peace. That's an important story. Riots or Chicago, whatever. But there's some stories out there that I think are happening, and I know you posted even on some of the emails that you send out via Pickaxe that we got to be paying attention to. I mean, Robert F. Kennedy, you mentioned he's doing fantastic work. You have the price of gold that has gone extremely high recently. What are the stories in your mind as a thinker that you are that probably, blood, if it bleeds, it leads, is the old adage. Maybe it's not necessarily leading because it doesn't bleed, or not necessarily leading because there's not a flashbang or power gunshot, but we should be paying attention to as a nation, AI being one of those. What are some other ones?
Honestly, I think what some of the other ones that I think we really need to pay attention to. I think I just sent out an email yesterday about this, where Kash Patel is actually calling for Congress to quote unquote do something about clickbait and conspiracy theories on these social media platforms. Ooh. Which is deeply concerning because, like, I've had Kash Patel on my show. I've interviewed him when he was promoting government gangsters, and he was phenomenal. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and he was very tough and all that kind of stuff. But then now he's the director of the FBI and calling on Congress to quote unquote do something about conspiracy theories and clickbait headlines and all this kind of stuff. And you could see, and he said this in an interview, and I think he also said this during a Senate hearing. And you can see the frustration, I think, in his face when he says that, because when he's now the FBI director, and he's supposedly going out there and doing all these investigations and all this kind of stuff, but people don't have faith in the FBI. They don't have faith in the DOJ. They don't have faith in the government, in the sense of we've been lied to how many times. And then when you tell us something that it just doesn't sit right with us, then we have a reason, and I would argue justifiably so, to question the narrative that you're giving us. So, like, Kash and all these guys getting into the DOJ and into our government, it was, we need to expose the Epstein list. Kash Patel literally told Glenn Beck, the FBI director has the black book. The FBI director has the list. He has the names. He has all this. And then as soon, whoever the FBI director is needs to just declassify it and get it out there. Well, then all of a sudden he gets in there and it's like, what are you talking about? A list? There's an Epstein list? What are you talking about? Like, it feels like we're being gaslit. And you can see the frustration where he's trying to push a narrative. People are not buying it. And so then what do? When you have power, then you want more power. And then what ends up happening? Then you start calling for censorship. And as I always say, the people calling for censorship are never the good guys. They're always the bad guys. And so at a certain point, we have to look at, if people are calling for censorship and they're supposedly on our side, what's really going on here? And I think we have legitimate questions now.
We have an example of, Kash Patel said we ought to do something. Well, the previous administration, quote, did something about what they consider conspiracy theories. They squelched us. They canceled us. They shut us down. And we were all offended that they did something. And now Kash Patel saying, let's do something. That's troubling because we don't like it when they do that. And yet here it's the old golden rule, do unto others as you wish they would do unto you. It's not do unto others as they have done unto you. But maybe we got to get Kash to Bible study here, Jeff.
Yeah, it would be nice, because again, it's one of those things where, and this is where I always come back to, what is your general principle? My general principle is free speech. My general principle is the First Amendment. My general principle is, if somebody is saying something that's false and it, counter it with the truth. So if Kash Patel is frustrated that people are sharing conspiracy theories or quote unquote clickbait tweets that are shifting the narratives and all that, the way to do it is to be more transparent. Give us the actual facts, give us the truth, and don't give us like text messages between, Charlie Kirk's shooter and his transgender, boyfriend that, clearly are edited and seen. And it really, like, it gives off the impression that, like, that seems like an FBI agent wrote that. Like, kids don't talk like that. People don't text like that. And say, and then there's legitimate questions about the fact that Charlie Kirk's shooter, he was up there on top of the roof. There's video of him jumping down. And so what they're alleging is that, he took the shot, took the gun apart, put it into his backpack, and then the backpack was too small for the gun to fit into, jumps down from a 12-foot jump, runs off, puts the gun back together, wraps it up in a towel, leaves it in the woods, texts his transgender boyfriend and says, hey, I did this. I took the shot, I wrapped it up, and I left it in the woods. Here's exactly where it is. And then you release all these text messages, and you're like, so you're literally telling me that he took the gun apart and then he put it back together later and left it in the woods and then told the FBI where it is in a tech. You're like at a certain point, we're kind of like, we're being gaslit again. And then he gets frustrated that we're not buying his narrative. And so then it's like, okay, let's go back to the censorship game. This is the problem. They've lost our trust and they're not earning it back.
And then you left off the part of the story where he arrived. They show him walking through the neighborhoods, limping like he was crippled, supposedly because he had the fully assembled gun down his pants leg, if we're to believe that. And yet, for some reason, he decided, why didn't he carry it in his backpack if he wanted to take it? I mean, none of it all makes sense. But Kash Patel and the state come out and go, "Oh, that's you're spreading conspiracy theories." Let's dive into this before we run short on time here. This thought of freedom of speech. We've got media that has become propaganda, as we have media that rather than present the other side, you just call someone a Nazi, a bigot, a racist, homophobe, and you don't have to present your ideas. I saw this story yesterday of some young journalists that were at the White House being honored and they called out the mainstream media. The riots and the street stuff is really happening in parts of Portland, and yet ABC, CBS, NBC don't have anybody there covering it. Therefore, if you don't see it, it didn't happen. So all that said, we have forgotten what the First Amendment was all about. I think our press doesn't take advantage of the right to free press. Do we need a new lesson in what the First Amendment is for? Do we need some nuance? Do we need some clarification? I don't want to go the way of England, where you can get put in jail for something you post on Pickaxe, but where are we at here? We seemingly are wandering in the wilderness, not knowing what the First Amendment is and how it could benefit us if we use it correctly.
Yeah, well, I think we've been propagandized for so long and gaslit into redefining what the First Amendment actually is. And I say this all the time. It's like you have freedom of speech and you have freedom of the press, and that's the keystone of the First Amendment, right? You have freedom of speech, which is us talking right now. We're verbally speaking. That is freedom of speech. Freedom of the press is not, credentialed journalists who work for NBC or CNN or, whatever it is, can write whatever they want without restriction, and then they never get in trouble. That's not what freedom of the press was. Freedom of the press was you as an individual have the ability to write out your grievances on a piece of paper, go down to your local printing press and have them print as many pamphlets as you want, and then go down to your local town square and distribute it freely without restriction. That was what freedom of the press was, according to our founding fathers. And we've kind of redefined it in order to give, freedom for the mainstream media to propagandize us all. And that's not what it was ever actually truly intended. And I think that this is also indicative of a society that does not actually believe that our constitutional rights are given to us by God. And our founding fathers clearly believe that. They believe that we have certain inalienable rights that are given to us by God, not given to us by the government, and that because it's given to us by God, because we're created in his image, that it cannot be taken away by the government. So literally, it was not giving us the rights in the Constitution, it was recognizing our rights in the Constitution. And so when you have guys like Kash Patel or Democrats or fill in the blank, whoever it is that's talking about censoring or limiting speech or restricting it in any way, what they're doing is they are basically saying, I know better than God about whether you should have the right to freely speak or not. I think that I can do a better job of having a society than God does. God gave us that inalienable right of free speech and freedom of the press. And these guys are basically saying, in general, either A, I don't believe that God exists. So if God does not exist, then the rights giver does not exist, and thus you don't have any actual truly God-given rights. Or B, they think they know better than God. So which is it? And neither one is actually a good solution.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to talk about pickaxe again, but are you following a lot of what's happening in the UK? Does that affect social media platforms like you? I mean, people are going to jail for sharing a meme with their buddies or, a little group text. Someone gets offended. Literally, people are going to like hard time, real jail because they might have said something about illegal aliens in the country. I mean, it's not like perverse threatening stuff, just like funnies, and they're going to jail. Are you following this?
Yeah, I've been following it a lot because it's happened in Canada, but it's happening very extensively in the United Kingdom, and it's really concerning. Like right now with us within the stage that we're at right now with Pickaxe, we're U.S. based because we want to be truly a free speech social media platform, and there's all these restrictions in all these other countries, but we're actively looking at how can we open this up to other countries as well and bring free speech there without actually opening up even those people to violations and arrests and like all that kind of stuff. So it's a really difficult situation as a platform of figuring out how do we bring again this God-given right of free speech and free press to the world that hates freedom and hates liberty and wants to deny the existence of God and your inalienable rights. So it's something that we're definitely following. We're trying to figure out how do we make this work without setting ourselves up for a whole bunch of persecution by government, but also even more importantly setting up the individuals in these countries for more persecution and all that. So we're definitely working through that, especially from a technological standpoint.
I think we have forgotten, Jeff, what a privilege it is in this country that you and I can sit here. And I normally lean conservative, but I have no problems criticizing the president when I need to, or Kash Patel. And that is a blessing that we oftentimes take for granted. A lot of keyboard warriors sitting there commenting in the chat room all day or calling up shows. And listen, this is a right that God gave us, and the government thinks it's a privilege they can take away, and we just don't understand what a joy it is that we have the ability to do this, because they cannot do what we're doing right now in the UK, or somebody's coming through the front door.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that a lot of times we forget, and even other people in other countries don't realize the value of what we have in free speech. Like we're the only country in the world that truly has free speech, not only just as a principle, but as like enshrined into our constitution, enshrined into the foundational documents of our country. No other country really has that. And you'll hear people from Canada and the UK and some of these other European countries, oh, we have free speech. Well, technically you don't, because if you do what supposedly hate speech, guess what? Now you're going into prison, and now you're being fined. Now you're doing all these things, and this is again another problem that I have with like even looking at X right now. They just banned Gab's AI account, uncensored AI. They actually just permanently suspended them from the platform for pushing quote unquote hate speech, which they ended up later defining as anti-Semitism, anti-Israel. They claimed that they denied the Holocaust, which I totally disagree with. All those things that Gab and Andrew Torba are promoting, but also it's an opinion. You have a right to bad opinions. You have a right to freely state a really awful, horrible opinion, as long as you're not calling for violence, you're not organizing to cause somebody harm, you're not doing something illegal. You have the right to bad opinions. The way that we actually counter that is not by kicking people off or canceling them or censoring them. It's with better speech. It's with the truth. The truth will cut through and actually change minds. But the thing is, you're not giving us the chance to counter bad ideas when you kick them off of platforms.
Jeff, if folks want to go to Pickaxe, it's easy. Sign up. It's we're still in beta, right? So there's it's not yet app based. It's still web based, but that's all coming soon. But people can get it on the ground floor.
Yep, absolutely. You guys can sign up today at pickaxe.com, and then we're beta testing the app right now for both iOS and Android. That'll be coming here very soon. We're going to be the only social media app that actually has full Rumble integration into the platform, so you can watch Rumble videos live, live streams and all that kind of stuff in the Pickaxe app, which is really cool, as opposed to just an outbound link that sends you over there. So
yep, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be linking our Rumble. We're on Rumble, so we're going to connect them all. But we're on there. Look for me, and I'll meet you there. I will. Pickaxe.com. Jeff, appreciate you coming on the program. Thank you very much. Jeff Dornick, founder, CEO of pickaxe.com. Go check it out, and maybe we can join each other over there. Just look up my name, Jimmy Lakey. You should find me. I signed up about 2 weeks ago, and I have literally been so busy. I just need to just sit down on my computer and work on it. I just haven't had the chance to do that. So I'm going to do it, but I'm on there. You just got to find me, pickaxe.com. I know you say, Jimmy, I don't need another social media platform. Well, first of all, you probably do because I'm there. Second of all, maybe some of the other crap that you've been spending time on, maybe you need to get rid of that and go over here. I'm just saying that this could be a great opportunity. And again, free speech is under assault. Free speech is under threat. People don't want to have a discussion in the arena of ideas. They'd rather shoot you at the university campus for having a different opinion. They'd rather call you racist, bigot, homophobe. They'd rather have the government do something because those are conspiracy theories. And by the way, when Cash or somebody says, well, be careful of the conspiracy theories, in the last decade or so, every conspiracy theory that you can think that has kind of been popular wasn't a conspiracy theory. The old adage is Noah was considered a conspiracy theorist until the first drop of rain fell from the sky, and suddenly, it was a bad deal. How much about the booger cootie virus and the pandemic and all that stuff was a conspiracy theory about the big pharmas and stuff? And now you're like, oh, nope, they were right. They were right. We got shut down Twitter. We were persecuted. Just said, don't say that on all these things. You can't say that or you're going to be kicked out of polite company, and yet the conspiracy theorists were right. So, ladies, just a platform that does value the free speech, I think, very important. I hope you'll go join. I need to get more active there. I will work on that. We'll set a goal to have a time to do that. Speaking of free speech, I want to remind you that we oftentimes do forget the importance of a free speech platform. You're welcome to comment. A lot of you comment on all the feeds here. And I go back through and read some. Some make no sense about some of the comments. Like, we don't see a lot of there's a couple of feeds that don't pop in here, or people listen after the show and then they post a comment. And some of them are dumb comments. Some are great comments. Some of them are funny. Some of them are they're all, it's just good old fun, right? But we've got some people out there that disagree. We welcome your opinion. We welcome your input here. We may think it's silly, but you're welcome to state your opinion here. Listen, it's just important that you pass the word about free speech shows. Again, you need to understand the importance to benefit the gloriousness of free speech that we have in this country. And there are some people that would like to squelch it, alter it, turn it around, and they'd love to shut it down. They'd love to say, well, you can speak truth, but it can't be a conspiracy theory. Well, again, how many things that you and I have maybe glommed onto in the last many years that we were saying, you're a conspiracy theorist? No, we were correct. It wasn't conspiracy theory. We were absolutely correct. So you got to be very careful when the government gets to decide what's conspiracy and what's reality, because the government has lied a lot about stuff. So value shows like this, like them, share them. I see just on X, Sandra Girl on X just reposted this stream to her link. When you're on, repost this to your stream and repost other things to your stream. Let the free speech flow, baby. And that's very important. Also support people who support. When you hear an advertiser on a show, remember, they're just not writing a check or sending a credit card charge in to support something. They are actually supporting free speech. I'll give you an example. Sherry Creed, great supporter of this show. Sherry believes in free speech. Sherry believes in people being able to speak their mind. Sherry has friends, and I know for a fact because we've had discussions about it. I've talked to her husband, and she's got friends that are left, right, center, far left. I mean, she's eclectic, but you know why? Because she believes that people ought to be able to get together and have disagreement, and sometimes just put politics aside and say, hey, we're part of humanity. Always support advertisers on shows. When you listen to I was looking for something recently, and I won't tell you the item because I'm not getting paid for it. He is. And I Googled it. I Googled he's a friend of the industry. I didn't want to text him. And I Googled his name and I Googled the product, and it took me a second, but I found it. And then I just asked AI what the promo code is to get it. I'm going to order it because, you know why? There's other ways that I could get this thing quicker and easier, just go on Amazon, but I wanted to support the company that supports my Friends Talk radio show that I've actually filled in for before, so I'm going to buy that product from them. So I'm telling you, my friends, support the people that support the free speech, because free speech is under assault, and you need to support people like Sherry Creed. Listen, Sherry's a great realtor. I know sometimes you're like, that's middle October, I'm not going to sell till next year. I can't emphasize this enough. Selling a home is not just a flip the switch kind of thing. There's going to be some ramp up. There's cleanup and patch the hole in the wall and, clean up the garage so it presents better. All that's part of it. But there's other stuff behind the scenes, watching the market trends. Hey, if we go to the market in spring, prices should be about here. Interest rates should be back. I mean, there's just a lot of things that you can gauge in the marketplace regarding you can just figure out in the marketplace there's timing on all these things. And again, a great idea. I keep using an example because I thought it was so powerful. Sherry says, listen, if you're going to list your home in the fall, in the spring, parts of Colorado don't green up until May or June. We're not an evergreen world. We're turning of the colors are now. Leaves are going to be off the tree. So if you're thinking of selling in, let's say, March, you're probably not going to have a pretty yard. You're not going to have the flowers in the bed. You're not going to have the leaves on the tree. It's not going to be good photography. Go ahead and talk to Sherry. Talk about the things you can do now, like home photography, while the lighting is still good, while the leaves are still on the tree. And that way you're prepared in the springtime to sell your home. The bottom line, homeswithsherry.com. As I said, free speech is important. Support those who support free speech. Sherry does. Homeswithsherry.com. If you're in the I-25 corridor in Colorado, you know who you are. That goes right through the heart of downtown Denver, up to Fort Collins Way, all the way down to the Park Meadows area. Listen, wherever you're at in that I-25 corridor, and yeah, that's east or west of the highway as well. That could be Boulder, that could be Broomfield, that could be Aurora, that could be Parker, that could be Littleton, that could be Lakewood, that could be Longmont. You get the idea. Anywhere on that I-25 Denver metro area, homeswithsherry.com. Portion of every bit of her proceeds will go to, she'll assign and donate that to a charity of your choice. And don't forget, if you're a military person, a veteran, she will discount her own commission to make it easier for you and leave more money in your pocket. She is just a fantastic person, a believer in free speech, and she wants you to get top dollar for real estate and make good transactions. She knows in the back of her head that if you play real estate right, it can be something that creates generational wealth for you and your family. Homeswithsherry.com. Homeswithsherry.com. She'll be on with us tomorrow on the program, but remind you, homeswithsherry.com. All right, in just a second, we're going to go to Niels Gravilius. I do have a question of the day. There's a new survey out that 65% of people have had it up to here, and I think it's here maybe, with tipping. We've talked about tipping a lot on this program, and people are more and more getting upset about tipping. Because everywhere you go, they flip that screen around and say, I don't give a tip. And I'm like, no, you're a register monkey. I love you. You just punch buttons. I don't have to tip for that, right? You just scanned the thing and on the thing and it beeped on your computer. Why do I need to tip for that? Well, people are getting fed up with it. It's being gassed. A new report says the average person has paid around $150 this past year in tips that they're not comfortable with. That's not how much they've tipped. They've about $150 of tips have gone out that I didn't want to tip that. 65% of people say they're fed up with the tipping thing. That's up from 60%. So 5% increase. And according to a new report, the average person has paid tips of about $150 that they didn't want to pay, but they felt pressure to do it. And so I want to ask you, when do you decide to tip? Do you think a tip should be expected? Do you tip the dog groomer? Do you tip the oil change person? Do you tip the person that brings your grocery bags out? Do you tip the person who you order your coffee and they pull out a little thing, it fills up your coffee, they stick the lid on it and hand? Do you tip that person? When do you tip? Everybody wants a tip now. But when do you tip? When do you feel pressured to tip? When do you decide to tip? I think obviously I tip at a restaurant. I think I'm a pretty good tipper at a restaurant. But I don't tip usually. I mean, I guess maybe keep the change if there's a change bucket there, maybe that's a tip jar. But if you're just pouring me a cup of coffee, I'm sorry. I see the sign out front. You're making $19-20 an hour. You're not like the waiters who are making $5 or $6 an hour and they rely on the tips. So anyway, give me your thoughts. When do you decide to tip? Are you part of the 65% of people that have had it up to here? And yes, I have had it up to here. And I'm more and more, I'm less ashamed of just saying no tip. I just do that. Sorry, I just do that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, glad to have all of you here. That's your question of the day on all the platforms. If you don't know how it works, you comment in the Facebook feeds. We're on several Facebook feeds. You can comment on the Twitter machine. This morning, you can comment on the Rumble and the YouTubes as well. We're on several different platforms, and you can comment live, and they come right into under the show. And producer Chad screens them, vets them, makes sure that they're proper for fine gentlemen and ladies like us, and he puts them up on the screen. And do that. And also, if you're listening later on in the program, on the podcast version, where thousands of earballs will hear the show. Listen, you can just send us an email, info@jimmylakey.com. Obviously, the live interaction is not there, but you can still participate with a thought. Have you had it up to here with tipping? 65% of Americans say, yeah, I'm absolutely fed up with the whole thing. Ladies and gentlemen, he's so good when he comes on the radio, the television, the broadcast program. What is it? It's a streamcast, podcast, and a broadcast. It's all wrapped up into one. He is so good that he deserves your tips like a girl at the strip club. Niels Gravilius on the program. Niels, on stage 4. How are you, sir?
I don't think I've ever enjoyed a finer day. Now, I want all of your female audience members to know that I am wearing my mink jock strap, and I do expect $50 bills to be shoved into it. Otherwise, they must keep their hands to themselves. I'm a very private man.
I bet your bank gets nervous when you walk in with all these glitter-covered $50 bills covered in glitter. You're like, it was a good night last night, darling. It was a good night.
More often than glitter, the currency comes in drenched in blood, but not mine.
So, wow.
Good morning, Mr. Lakey. Tell me what's new and exciting, won't you?
Well, we got peace breaking out, it looks like, in the Middle East, but we got crime going on in the city. Some of these cities need Niels Gravilius on the case. It's a great day to be an American, but it's also disturbing to see some of these crime trends and some of these politicians is kind of prone to say, yeah, crime's okay as long as Donald Trump doesn't stop it. It's just the arrangement out there regarding Donald Trump and real policy is a big disconnect. Other than that, Niels, I'm doing fantastic.
Well, that's good. Yeah, we have a problem. I can attribute it largely to politicians who cater to the expert class of men and women who never solve problems. They actually create problems and then pick my pocket, your pocket to solve the problem they created, and then they run along and create a new one. I'll give you a good example. You will find people who are so-called experts in psychiatric medicine and psychology who will tell you that there is such a thing as gender dysphoria. And for some reason, that aspect of medicine seems to be going in reverse. Rather than learning more, getting better, fixing things, solving problems for human beings, they create problems, they make people hate themselves, they sterilize autistic homosexual males, things like that, all in the name of trans equality, etc. I'll give you another example. They have adopted the absurdist belief that they are trying to push in every single state, that a psychopath can be rehabilitated and made into a nice person capable of dwelling in civil society without marauding, like this man in North Carolina that killed Irina, or the character here in California with the 91 felony convictions who wants probation, for his latest felony, that sort of thing. If you ask a prison officer, even the lowest educated prison officer, he knows more than your typical psychologist or psychiatrist. He will tell you, or she will tell you, that a psychopath cannot be rehabilitated. They can only be confined or mitigated chemically. And once they're out in the bush, they're not going to take their meds, the things that make them behave, that sort of thing. I think that politicians of a particular stripe like to virtue signal over what they call restorative justice, which is just neo-Marxism, and that's how we wind up with vast populations of ex-cons out marauding on the streets in states like California, probably Colorado too. You've got some remarkably unwise people running the state that you're in, Mr. Lakey. It's pretty amazing. Didn't you have a governor who took his mother to see a pornographic movie when he was 19?
Yep, you're absolutely right. He took his mother to go see a porno at the age of 19. So,
well, she wasn't 19; he was.
Yeah,
I wonder what kind of a date that was. Anyway, I don't want to.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Yeah, we'll leave that one alone.
Yeah, let's keep Let's keep this tethered to earth, Mr. Lakey.
Our governor is a piece of work. Let's just say that. Niels Gravilius is my guest. In case you are listening on the podcast, you can't see the screen because you're listening later, where thousands of earballs will hear the show. He's got a book coming out next year called The Last Lawman. We'll talk about that here in just a second. Niels, let me pick your brain. Speaking of prison, last week we heard that Sean P. Diddy, or now he's just Diddy Combs, was sentenced to 4 years and 2 months in prison, citing a history of abusing women. Give me your thoughts as you watched that sentencing hearing or kind of followed it along. Diddy was like, "Hey, let me out. I've learned my lesson. I'm very apologetic." But the judge says, "No, you're not." He begged the judge for another chance, but he didn't get it. Well, he gets in 4 years. Your thoughts?
Well, people can argue over the appropriate number of years for Mr. Diddy to serve. I'll point something out here. The only difference between Mr. Diddy and Mr. Epstein, in my mind, is that Mr. Diddy wasn't running an intelligence operation. Mr. Diddy might have been running an unintelligent operation. And there will be people mimicking Diddy while Diddy's in prison. They'll pinch hit for him. There will be people who call themselves social influencers and party organizers and that sort of thing, who will be having exactly the same sort of parties, will invite the same milieu, and they will engage in the same perverse behavior that Mr. Diddy was engaged in.
Let me ask you, the Diddy thing's fantastic. It's good radio. It's good to talk about. But ultimately, while Diddy's locked up, we still have this problem in America. You talk about the crime on the streets, the burning of cities, the burning of things. We've had the church shooting happen, fire at a Michigan Mormon church. Yesterday on one of the, cathedral steps in Washington, D.C., a guy was in a tent there, had hundreds of explosive devices out there. You have people that have been protesting 100 days in Portland. I don't think anybody, especially that age, has 100 days of vacation time. They're being funded. There's medical tents. There's lawyers involved. As a private investigator, how do we root out who the root cause of this is? There's just too much money, too much coordination going on for this to just be a bunch of lone wolves out there. Is there a way to sniff out this money trail and find out who's behind all this?
Well, certainly. When you see these people on mainstream political media tell you there is no Antifa organization, they're lying to you. They're being intellectually dishonest. These groups are organized. They have bank accounts. You can pull the bank accounts apart and find out where the money comes from and where it goes, that sort of thing. I will point out that you cannot have sustained riots without partnership in city government. So, the Ku Klux Klan in Portland, in their Portland tuxedos, is just part of the city power structure. They contribute to the governor and to the mayor of Portland, that sort of thing. The rest of Oregon hates them and can't wait to get rid of them. That's one thing. The other thing we need is voter identification, and we need to defund these NGOs. Most of the money that flows into the pockets of these Ku Klux Klan members comes from NGOs and local government. They are either on government payroll or NGO payroll. This is a professional thing for them. They live very well off of us. You'll notice that when they get arrested at the state level, they're rarely charged with anything ever. They're just immediately turned out. Oregon passed a law recently to make it so that their mugshots couldn't be released. I wish AG Bondi would have a searchable public database with a daily update of the mugshots, their names, their aliases, their dates of birth, their hometown, their employer, and or the publicly funded university that they attend, that you and I are paying for, that King Potato wanted to forgive their student loans for, and all of that. We need to pull that apart.
Yeah. The voice of Niels Gravilius, The Last Lawman. Niels' last guest, I was talking about the First Amendment, how we take for granted that oftentimes we have the right to give free speech, give opinion. People in the United Kingdom are going to jail over funny memes that they send to their buddies in a text message. I mean, it's we're the last true bastion of free speech. For years, that's the First Amendment. Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, that's been under assault. And now we find there's just large groups of government, city governments you're talking about, that don't want basic law and order. So the very premise of our country, First Amendment, the Second Amendment, a country of law and order, all seem to be under assault. As a lawman, that law and order thing's got to really be pissing you off a little bit here, that we're giving up on law and order. That's what a polite civilized society has, is law and order.
Well, what you have to recognize is that in these blue cities, blue states, often blue cities in red states, they thrive on ambiguity. They will tell you that there's no enforcement mechanism. There's no money to enforce the law, that sort of thing. They selectively enforce what it is that's important to them. They will shut Jimmy and Nils up, but amplify their own message, and they always have the political media behind them. You'll notice that CBS never got censored. CBS never got pulled off of Twitter or Facebook, that sort of thing. And they put out plenty of quote unquote disinformation, that sort of thing. We need to ruthlessly go after government officials that enabled Facebook and Twitter to censor people or ordered them to. That must be done. There's something else I want to point out. You brought up the shooting at the Mormon church. In Michigan with the Marine Corps veteran. And the same weekend, another Marine Corps veteran of approximately the same age, 40 years old, shot a bunch of people from his boat into a restaurant on shore in, I believe, North Carolina. I think both of these men were in the throes of cannabis psychosis. They were able to function in the Marine Corps, get all the way through boot camp, infantry training regiment. They went to Iraq, both of them. They served honorably, and then suddenly at age 40, they are disordered males, so disordered that they're engaged in irrational violence. I think it's cannabis psychosis, Jimmy. This high concentrate THC cannabis is driving people into paranoid schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder. It's one of the things that we need to tamp out. We can't get rid of cannabis, but our government should be launching an anti-cannabis initiative along the lines of the one they did against big tobacco.
Yeah. The voice of private investigator Niels Gravilius. His organization, his company works out of Los Angeles, and you can look him up, graviliuspi.com, graviliuspi.com. Niels, I teased the book because it's ready. June, I guess, we're getting close to being done.
June of 2026, we're going to publish through Post Hill Press is publishing it. It's The Last Lawman. It's my true memoir of working as a private detective, running and gunning on the streets of Los Angeles. My time in the Pinkerton service. I was a soldier for a while. I was privileged to serve this country. It's pretty unique as a private detective's professional memoir. I don't do a lot of stuff involving cheating husbands, that sort of. Most of my work is what the police used to do and don't do anymore. I mean, I was protecting property in the garment district during the Rodney King riots. No. The police couldn't do it. I get dead body cases, things like that. You'll be happy to know that Colonel Schlichter wrote the foreword to my book, and it's a banger. His foreword looks almost better than my book, if you could imagine that. And I'm very pleased that the Colonel agreed to do that. Go ahead, sir.
I said, so you're out in Los Angeles, and because of that, you had Magnum PI. It was a TV show. I'm thinking Gravilius PI, and we could have you showing a little chest hair, driving in a fancy car. I think it's a great concept for Hollywood.
Well, I don't have an English houseboy or a red Ferrari. There's a sequence in my book where I described running down a bail jumper who was being driven around by a girl with one leg in a brand new Mustang. She had lost her leg in some hideous accident and blew her settlement money on this Mustang. And he was trying to get away, and she went to drop him off at an apartment in Los Angeles and ran him over.
Wow.
You know, and so I drove the Mustang away to give it to the bondsman because she had sworn the Mustang as collateral on his bond. And when I got back to my battered Volvo, somebody had left a great big stinking camote in the back seat. It was horrifying, man.
Nils Gravilius, GraviliusPI.com. We got to go. I appreciate you, my friend, hopping on here. Nils Gravilius. Adios, amigo. Nils Gravilius, GraviliusPI. Ladies and gentlemen, he was vacationing last week. I didn't have it on my calendar, and therefore I got frightened from my buddy Jay Ratliff. I sent out a welfare check, but he's fine. He's well. Jay, how was vacation, sir?
It was fine. We needed to get away for a few days and did. Like you, sometimes sleep is an interruption of my day. So taking a couple of days just kind of recharge the batteries was nice. And yeah, my apologies. I thought I'd given you a heads up.
You might have, but it was fine. I was producer Chad and I were talking to you and said, have you heard back from Jay? I said, I haven't heard back from Jay. I don't know what's wrong with Jay. And
you should have my cell phone, so you can always send me a text. And, just to make sure everything's okay.
I dialed the number I had in my phone. I was like, well, no answer. And I think that was your Savannah house. I don't know. Anyway, nice. You're here. It's good to have you. I appreciate you hopping on the program. Jay Ratliff, aviation and travel expert. His website is jratliff.com, RATLAFF, jratliff.com. Jay, I've heard of people smuggling drugs. I've heard of people smuggling pets or snakes or things like that in their purses or in their travel bags. Cigarette smuggling, evidently, that's going to get you in trouble. Tell the story.
Well, if you're a smuggler in Lithuania and you are using balloons to smuggle those cigarettes, yes, not exactly the high-tech issue of drone smuggling, but someone had launched, I think it was 25 balloons, big balloons, as they were trying to smuggle large quantities of cigarettes, and those balloons wandered into the airspace around an airport in Lithuania, and it caused the flight activity to stop. They had a number of arrivals. I think it was 30 different jets coming in. They had to divert to other airports because of these balloons that were in the area. And looking at the pictures, Jimmy, these were big balloons. So fortunately, nobody got hurt, no injuries, no accidents. But I don't think in my airline days at Northwest, we had anything like a cigarette delay, but that's what would have come into play here. So yeah, kind of interesting to see that taking place.
Yeah, I'm thinking there's a movie about Smokey and the Bandit. They were bootlegging the beer across the state lines. We're supposed to do. I didn't know that the smuggling activity of smuggling cigarettes was that important or that big, but I guess it is.
It's out of my scope of expertise. So it certainly caught me off guard, but that's why I always tell you. And sometimes I laugh when I say it. You'll never hear me use those words. Oh, I've seen it all. I think that's such an arrogant statement because you never want to underestimate what people can and are willing to do.
Now, the serious part of that is these were big balloons, and they had to shut down literally the airport because it was a risk that these planes would hit them. Do balloons like that, depending on the size, do they show up on the radar? Is this only line of sight? I mean, what is the danger of a balloon going through if it's not picked up on radar and the pilot doesn't see it?
From what my experience is, certain balloons will show up. It just depends on what they're made of. And you have some surveillance balloons that do not. And it can become a problem. A lot of times you have balloons that are in areas, weather balloons and other types of things that are clearly identified. The FAA knows where they're at, and they make sure that the flights that are approaching those areas are made aware of those. But a lot of times it becomes a line of sight, a type of thing, because I've been in the cockpit many times flying in the jump seat when the captain turns to me and says, look, if you see anything that we do not see, point it out immediately. They have that rule of 10,000 feet and below, no conversations other than the operation of the aircraft. And typically that's when people that are flying in the jump seat, as I would, basically keep our mouth shut. But the crew's always said, Jay, if you see anything at any time during the flight that we need to be made aware of, please point it out. And but yeah, I never saw a balloon during my time, the countless times I was in the air in the cockpit. But I would think if you were approaching one, it would certainly get your attention fast.
Yeah. The voice of Jay Ratliff, if you're listening later on in the program, when it's a podcast version, you won't see his name on the screen, but it's jratliff.com, RATLAFF, jratliff.com. Jay, I traveled this weekend, and I was amazed at how just in the last few weeks when I've been traveling, the warnings on the pre-board and on the plane about the lithium batteries. Are airlines getting more and more petrified about these lithium batteries, sir?
They should, and for good reason. We're seeing these almost once a week somewhere. We're having some sort of lithium battery issue. Southwest has changed their policy where any battery chargers have to be in a bag that will fit underneath your seat. The thought is if it starts to overheat, they want you to be able to see it, notify a flight attendant so that they can take the appropriate action. Sometimes they're in the overhead storage compartment and they start to overheat. No one knows it until it becomes an issue. And then it's a much bigger problem for the flight attendants to have to deal with. And those onboard flyers with lithium batteries burn at such a hot temperature. It's very difficult, conventional means to put those types of fires out. So it's becoming more and more of an issue. We talked about the old Galaxy 7 or Samsung phones that were being banned by the FAA from being able to fly. Those go back to, I think, 2016 or 17. Yeah. Most people don't have those, but it's becoming more and more of an issue. And sadly, we don't have a real easy way to fix that problem right now. And when you see some of the videos that are out there on YouTube and other places where people have got these in their backpack and they're walking through an airport or some other place, and it suddenly explodes into flames when one of these devices overheats, it shows you just how fast that can become a problem. And that's why flight attendants are always telling people, if your phone gets lodged into a seat and you can't get to it, don't try to get it yourself. Notify a flight attendant immediately so they're aware of it. Because if it gets stuck, the crew is going to make a decision. If that thing starts to overheat, we can't get to it. It's going to catch on fire, create a big time problem. They'll declare an emergency. They will land that airplane at the nearest airport so the maintenance crews can come on board the airplane, locate and retrieve that phone before it becomes a problem. This is a serious, serious issue, and probably the one that is at the top of the list of a lot of individuals as far as potential worries with regards to commercial aviation and safety. So everybody's got a cell phone. These things start to overheat. They're becoming more and more of a problem.
I noticed the amp up just the last few weeks on the announcements at the airport. Very quickly, we joke about airlines and how they charge you for a bag, then they charge you for the peanuts, and you got to pay for the seat up front, the seat in the back. You have to pay for the seat on the aisle of the window, in the middle. WestJet, you sent me the story, has found yet another way. Just when you think they couldn't get in your pocket enough, WestJet has found a way to raise some more money from passengers.
Yeah, it's for people that would like a premium seat. Now, premium is like, ooh, Jay, you mean a first class seat? No. Well, you mean one that has got extra big leg room? Well, no. Reclining seats are now premium seats on WestJet. Yes, you heard me right. You have to pay extra to sit in a seat that reclines. And it's absolute brilliance when you think of it, as far as they found yet another way. And what's next? Oxygen? I don't know. But the whole point is that airlines will sell it to us this way. You know, more and more customers are complaining about these seat reclining wars that take place, and it's causing a lot of onboard problems. And we'd like to alleviate that. So we're going to make all of our seats at a slight recline. Can't go back anymore. And everybody on the airplane will have the same thing. But what airlines won't tell us, and they talk about behind closed doors, is once they do that uniform type of structure on board the airplane, they can put in an extra 2 rows of seats. That's extra revenue. So they can do that, create more revenue, and then turn around like WestJet is doing and say, we've got 12 premium seats on our aircraft that can be yours for just a slight additional cost. You know, it used to be we could come to the airport with our check bags we didn't have to pay for. Now we do. Used to be we could actually carry a bag on board an airplane and not have to pay for it. Now we do. Used to be we could make a seat assignment on an airplane and not have to pay for it. Now we do. So every time we turn around, they're coming up with another ancillary fare. And sadly, given the fact that you are, the airlines play follow the leader, you know what's going to happen. Everybody else is going to do the same thing because they're like, crap, we didn't think about that. Let's do the same thing, which is unfortunately one of the big issues. And of course, Jimmy, if I can throw in one other trending story right now, it's these airport shutdowns that are taking place due to the government shutdown. And I'm seeing the press just go crazy on this. And I'd like to add just a little bit of factual information to that if I could, because you and I like to talk about facts. We did have the Burbank airport closed because they didn't have enough air traffic controllers. It was unstaffed. A local nearby airport had to take over, which happens frequently. We also had the same situation in Nashville. Jimmy, this is not something that is directly connected to the shutdown. We've had in the last 9 months 1,000 occurrences where FAA control towers have had to be shut down because of a lack of controllers. So they didn't go crazy any of those other times in the last 9 months. But I'm getting all these TV and radio requests to talk about this unbelievable issue. And I'm like, where have you been? I mean, we've had this happen over and over and over and over again. But, a lot of people are trying to obviously pin this on President Trump and the administration or the Republicans. And I'm just thinking, well, I hate to introduce facts into your story here, but I'm going to do it. This is a non-story. Now, obviously, we do have a lot of people that are calling in sick because Tuesday they're going to get a partial paycheck, these controllers, and on the 28th, no check. And a lot of people can't go 5, 6, 8 weeks without income. So they've got many of them a secondary job, and that's what they're doing. They're working where they can get paid, putting food on the table, calling in sick. And when you have a depleted bench, as we do with air traffic controllers, unfortunately, it's going to continue. Hopefully, since we're 6 weeks away from the busiest travel week of the year, they're going to get this fixed and fast.
Well, hope so. Jay Ratliff, I'm heading to the airport today, not to fly out, but to pick up my son. He's flying home for a couple of days from college. What's it like to move about the country?
This whole week has been a mess. The last weekend, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and a lot of it was issues in the Northeast. Today, all that crap is gone. So it's actually, other than Seattle, which rains like every other day, we've got issues there, and that's it. So limited turbulence, limited bad weather. If you pick today, I mean, triple gold star because we don't have the headaches that we've had every single day of the week that we've been seeing this week.
JRatliff.com. Jay, I appreciate your time, my friend. Welcome back. I appreciate you being on. JRatliff.com, aviation and travel guru. I like guru more than expert, but we can do it either way. You guru, Jay Ratliff on the aviation and the travel. All right, good to have you here on the program. I did that story. I'm trying to keep track of which ones I got to and which ones I didn't get to. The Middle East is the top ceasefire is in effect. And again, walking through the timeline, I'm sure there'll be more developing stories on this. The peace deal was signed in the dark of night for us early morning there in the Middle East. Israel had a cabinet meeting and they're beginning the process of pulling back to a set marker. They call it the yellow line, and they're not retreating from Gaza. They're staying in Gaza. Right now, they control over 80% of the Gaza territory, and they're backing up to a line that will put them at about 51%. And once they hit that line, according to the peace deal, the Trump peace deal, Hamas will go in and start retrieving the remains of any hostages that they have murdered, and also start promoting and getting the living hostages out. And they have 72 hours to start doing that process. So Hamas has accepted Trump's peace plan. There's a council that's going to lead. Hamas is not allowed to be on the council. Qatar and some other places are on it. I don't know if we even know the full details of this council, and they will be the governing council that will oversee the Gaza area, the Palestinian area, and they will also start leading the rebuilding. President Trump says it's a very powerful team that'll have a lot of power, but they've all agreed that Hamas is not going to get authority back. So we'll see how all this unfolds for us and pans out. But what we know now is Israel, if not now, in the next moments, literally today, will begin rolling back their occupation or their positions in Gaza. They'll roll back to the yellow line, which is about 51% of the country. They'll still have under their auspices, and that will then trigger a 72-hour window for Hamas to release the living and the remains of the hostages there, and that's going to become a breaking story as well. I've got the story. I'm going to highlight it because this is what I'm doing. I've got a story as the mayor of Chicago and big boy from Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, continue to say there's nothing to see here, nothing to see here. Well, guess what? ICE has discovered a real criminal there in Chicago hiding behind big boy from Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, a guy involved in human and sex trafficking that J.B. Pritzker and I guess the mayor of Chicago didn't really care that was there. They wait, don't come here to get this guy. No, he was running an entire ring of human trafficking and sex trafficking that was operating in Ohio, but he was living in Chicago, and J.B. Pritzker, the big boy from Illinois, didn't seem to care about that. I also still want to get, and this is going to take a time where we have a 15, 20-minute window to open up the discussion and get the discussion from some of you who are Catholics out there. I'm watching from afar. I'm not inside of the Catholic Church at all. I'm not Catholic, but I'm just amazed that last week we had the Pope and Doug Giles on to talk with us, blessing a block of ice because he was blessing the ice caps because the ice caps are melting, which we know is false and it's fake science. And there's Pope Leo pretending that it's part of it. And I'm like, and then this past week, he comes out and starts talking about immigration, and a lot of folks thought it was a swipe at Trump and the United States of America. And I guess my question becomes more and more, as you've heard stories about people and a resurgence of religion in America, young men especially heading back to the Catholic Church because they want the structure, they like the, I won't say pomp and circumstance, but they just like something that's been around for a long, long, long time. But do churches and or ministries and or Catholic or Protestant that really seem to be given the only time they make headline isn't about the things that I think you should be making headlines of the church, but you're blessing icebergs and you're criticizing Israel, or you're criticizing and you want to open borders. Is that really something that's going to attract a new generation of believers, or is that something that's going to repel people from inside? I'm just curious as to how people tolerate that. If I go to a church that is not worried about being politically correct, very good church, one of the largest, I think, top 10 in America. That's the church I attend. And it's a big one, but they're not really worried about political correctness there. And it's a great church. I enjoy my pastor as well, and just listening to him. But if I sat at a church that I don't know how you sit at a church that you have the head of a denomination or the head of the church just talking about open borders and criticizing Trump. And during the weekdays, whenever you're thinking, are you visiting the sick in the hospital? Did you heal the sick, raise the dead? Did you go and evangelize, proselytize, bring people into the kingdom? Did you help make heaven crowded? Is what Charlie Kirk would always say. Did you do any of that? No, but I put my hand on an iceberg while I wore a big robe and looked really pious, and I blessed the ice caps. What relevance does that have to most people in America, most people around the globe? I go around the globe deal with hurting, sick, dying people, just horrible. I've seen horrible things. I know horrible stories of things. We've rescued some kids from some pretty bad situations, and I'll tell you this: it is just despicable to see people given more when they make the headlines. You're making the headlines for the wrong reasons. And that's my criticism. Here's the Pope. Maybe he's doing a lot of great things behind the scenes, but all that's getting coverage right now is he's laying hands on ice cubes and criticizing immigration and closing borders. And what relevance then does the church have? What relevance does the Catholic faith have if that's what they're going to be known for, as opposed to easing the pain of the impoverished around the globe? They do some great work. There's some great work, but unfortunately at the very top, it seems like they're mostly obsessed. I guess they'll let the little nuns take a vow of poverty, the little priests go make a vow of poverty and go deal with the lepers, deal with the sick, deal with the hungry. But those in the Vatican that wear the high robes and the jewelry and that wave the smoke around, they get to go touch ice cubes. And I'm sorry, I'm going to hook my wagon to the people that are out there touching the sick, the lost and the dying, more than the old guy in a robe that's very pious laying hands on an ice cube. Screw that nonsense. My opinion. I will talk more about that. If you're the Pope, I'd love to hear from you. If you're Catholic, I'd love to get your take at it. But Pope Leo's at it again. And anyway, I'm just finding it disappointing. And there's so much pain, agony, misery, heartbreak, and suck in the world. And laying hands on Ice Cube and talking about open border policy is absolute insanity. And I'm saying I got a hotline to God, but I just don't find a lot of that crap in the Bible. I find it a big pile of donkey poop. And I think that the gospel of Jesus is more than laying hands on an ice cube. And I found that to be a despicable and humiliating moment for the Catholic Church, my opinion. All right, there, I got that off my chest. All right, everybody good? Everybody's happy out there? The Pope is virtue signaling, Ray says on the YouTube, to look like he's doing his part. Well, again, if you're supposed to be the vicar of Christ and you're supposed to, and all of us are supposed to be representative of Christ, Christ says we are his ambassadors, that's in the Bible, then what did you promote as the ambassador of Christ today? Whether you're the vicar of Christ or you're the pastor, or maybe you're the guy that works the bar and you're an ambassador of Christ. How did you represent Christ today? And I just don't know if representing Christ by laying hands on Ice Cube that's not my calling. That's for darn sure. All right, can we represent? We have time to discuss that. I said that's going to be a bigger discussion here. I'm going to show you a photo I've been promising you. Then we're going to wrap this puppy up with meme roulette. Speaking of the hurt, the broken, the dying, as you know, we have a charity called Rivers Promise. You see behind us. By the way, we'd love a studio sponsor to replace that. We'll put that away. I'll just talk about it. If you would like your logo up there to wear thousands of earballs, let us know. You can be our studio sponsor, info@jimmylakey.com. I want to show you this photo. This is a kid named John Didu. John Didu is a young man that about 8 years of age, he came into our charity sponsorship program at Rivers Promise, and he's in the upper right-hand corner. You can see John Didu there in the blue striped shirt, and that's when he's about 11 years of age. And a lady that was a longtime listener of mine in Wyoming, her name is Eileen. Never have I met that I know of Eileen face-to-face. I have spoken to her on the phone one time, maybe twice, but she sponsors, I think she takes second jobs to sponsor kids. Usually have 3, 4, 5 kids that she's sponsoring. Well, John Didu is a kid that she sponsored, and at 8, 9, 10, 11, you see the picture to the upper right. John Didu wanted to become an engineer, but he didn't even get to start going to school till he was around 10 or 11 because you didn't have fees until Eileen sponsored him. And so he goes off to school, and about 18, if when they get 17, 18, we kind of look, okay, you're going to finish, because they have to start in first grade. If they start school at 12, they're starting in first grade. There's no testing up to it. You're starting at the beginning. That's the program they have. And so John Didu starts school. We get him through 11. We get him to 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. He gets 5 or 6 years in school, does well, but obviously he's not going to be at 18. He's not going to be able to go to college or university to become an engineer. And so we sent him off to trade school through Eileen's help, and our general fund also helped it. And we sent John Didu off to trade school. John Didu becomes a welder, starts making what he thought was very good money, and then he decided he wanted to do more, and he just wanted to make sure he was a better man. So he joined the RDF, which was the Rwanda Defense Force, the Rwandan military. And suddenly, all of a sudden, and by the way, through his interaction, he became a Christian believer in Jesus through Rivers Promise, and he joins the military, and they put him in. This is fantastic. They put him in. Unbeknownst to him, he's still praying that he could one day become an engineer. They put him in the engineering battalion, which means he's going to learn engineering. He thought the dream was dead. It was amazing. And so now he's built, I think they built 50-something bridges with his battalion, homes for widows, buildings he's really done a lot to change the infrastructure. And he did it as an orphan that just lived with his mom, but never thought his dream would come true. But God had a totally different plan. Now, John Didu is just last month, Rwanda sent a contingent of people with a peacekeeping mission into the South Sudan. And he's there, and he's going to service a couple of months there. And he says when he gets home, I think the military's about done for him, but he's going to build his mom the house of the dream. I show you John Didu because sometimes when you sponsor a kid or you hear of a child sponsorship, you're like, yeah, that's nice, beautiful kid. But what you don't know is fast forward as to how much that sponsorship, that nurturing, that consistent help is going to make that kid somebody. It's kind of like your child. You see them as a first grader, second grader, and they're squirrely. And then one day you're amazed when they're walking across the university stage or even the high school stage and going, wow, I never thought he'd make it anything. And that's the beauty of sponsorship. Over time, these kids get not just their nutrition, they get their uniform, they get a top-notch education now at our Legacy Christian Academy. He had not built that when John Didu was in school. They also get health care, health insurance, and it changes the trajectory of their life to where this a kid that thought all hope is gone, no dreams can come true because I'm poor. I can't become an engineer. I'm poor. And God worked it all out, and that's John Didu. So I do that as just, first of all, I don't think Eileen watches this show. I know she listened for years on the radio. Eileen, if you're out there, that's John Didu. That's your boy. And You could sponsor a child. All you got to do is learn more about it. Even if you don't want to sponsor a kid, you don't need to necessarily know the child's name. If you want to interact, they'll do that. Some of I know Scott and Stacy, some of the people that watch the show regularly have started sponsoring kids that watch the program, and they'll write letters to you. They'll send photos to you. We're upping our game in that. Anyway, they'll do all that. But if some people just want to, hey, just apply it to a kid that needs it, and they don't want that. Whatever the case may be, $65, $65 a month, and that sponsors a child, and that sends them to school, their school uniforms, their meals, 2 meals a day for every month, health insurance that they get, the uniforms they have, their school supplies. It really underwrites a kid. We call it basic life amenities. We evaluate that every month for the kids. Sometimes it's a bag of rice or some beans to take home to the family that's starved. Sometimes it's just a new pair of shoes to replace the ones that we already bought them. It's just basic life amenities. We really look after the kids. $65 a month. Now, tell you this. Ready? You say, I can't do $65 a month, Lakey. I'm still living in Biden's economy. That's all right. $10. One-time gift of $10 buys that kid a uniform. John Dedu, maybe is 8 years old, goes to school. He has to have a uniform. If he doesn't have a sponsor, we got to get him a uniform. $10 buys the uniform. And you say, well, you can afford $10, Lakey, out of your own pocket. Yeah, but we have hundreds of kids. Most of the kids that go to Legacy Christian Academy don't have sponsors. They're on our website now. But $10 will buy one of those unsponsored kid a uniform. $30 one time or every month. If you can't do $65 a month, do $30. That provides 2 meals a day for 30 days, 2 meals a day, all month long. That's the breakdown. So there's a way for people to give at a very it's a low level, and it all makes great impact. There was a listener of the program, a viewer of the program, before we do meme roulette, that sent in I think it's a $10 donation yesterday. And they've done that on occasion. And in the comments said, I'm glad that you're thankful for small donations. So I just know that there's state in life and situation. They're the old fixed income kind of thing, and I know it. And $10 is what they did. And maybe we'll get another $10 next year. I don't know, but all I know is that $10 will go to work and take care of a kid. So anyway, riverspromise.org. If you don't know the whole story, if you're new to the program, we got a lot of new listeners. Go there, watch the mini documentary produced by producer Chad when he was there in Rwanda with me and with my son. I'll be back there in about 60 days. I'll be back in Rwanda. We'll do some of the shows from there. But riverspromise.org, any donation you give today is we're very grateful to receive it. If you'd like to sponsor a kid, look at the beautiful faces. And you, too, in 8, 9, 10 years could be reading a story about a child's life who was transformed like John Dedu. It's up to you. All right? Let's do it. All right, meme roulette. Let's play. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. There we go. The ideas of socialism. Yeah, I remember her American Eagle jeans. Hi. And then there's the reality of socialism. There's Greta Thunberg. Somebody at least tell her to go to Supercuts next time for the haircut, I'm thinking. Yeah, Greta. All right, round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Must have been warm. I'm sorry, the way it lays on my screen, I can't see it. I got to change it. Oh, must have been warm. He's opened up his sunroof. That's the problem with the toupees. There is no toupee under here, my friend. Just thin hair. That's all I have under here. Round and around the globe we go. Still opened up the sunroof. Round and around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. This is on the chalkboard in front of the bar. If you have to ask if it's too early to drink, you're an amateur and we can't be friends. Producer Chad, have you and I ever asked each other that question? Nope, we never have, and that's why we're friends. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. At 5, I identified as a pirate. My parents took me to the hospital, the children's hospital. And because I identified as a pirate, my eye was removed for the patch. One leg was amputated below the knee for a peg leg. And my hand was removed for the hook to be put on. And my pronouns are now P and irate. Arr, matey. You get the parallel, right? We're not talking about pirates. Delilah, you do understand. We're not talking about pirates here. Okay. Make sure you know. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Here we are. Babylon B says, headline, compromise. Trump agrees to designate Chicago mayor's house as an ice-free zone. I think that'd be great. Ice-free zone around big boy from Illinois, Pritzker. You guys handle it yourself. Ice. It's a sanctuary. Why is the mayor, the governor, are they housing some of these illegals? They should. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Ice Cube's dwarf's brother, his name is Crushed Ice. That's not politically correct, producer Chad. If we get emails on that one, I'm forwarding them right to you. If anybody, if you laughed at that, you're wrong. You have problems. If you laughed at that, shame on you. Round around the globe we go. Crushed Ice. Wow. I don't choose them. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Ladies and gentlemen, we have run short on memes today. 65% of the people have had it up to here with tipping. But I tell you, if you'd like to give me a tip, feel free. info@jimmylakey.com. I can take Venmo, PayPal, cash, whatever. I will. All right. Glad to have all of you here on the show. Thanks for being a part of the program. I went a little overtime today because Jay Ratliff's a 9 o'clock guest. We usually try to wrap up by about that time. But until we meet again tomorrow, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Make a donation. riverspromise.org if you'd like to be a sponsor of the program or interact with the show. info@jimmylakey.com. info@jimmylakey.com. Until we meet again tomorrow. Yeah, that's funny. Crushed Ice. If you laughed at that, Scott, you and producer Chad are going to a very hot place. Well, I laughed, but I had to. Show business, right? God bless you. God bless the little people. What's the AOC call them? The small kings. God bless the small kings out there. God bless you. God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of here.